Let's try to integrate the two new components that we have developed into the home page. Inside the home.jsx, the component that is responsible to display all the products is product listing. I'm going to open this product listing. Inside this product listing only, we are trying to iterate all the products and display them on the UI application. Just above this div, which is responsible to display all the products, I'm going to create one more div, and to this div, I'm going to give some styling with the help of Tailwind CSS classes. Inside this div, by default, for mobile screens, the elements under this div will be displayed using column, whereas any screen which is having width above 640px, it is going to follow row style of displaying the elements. I hope you are able to understand the CSS styling. Now, under this div, we can try to mention our two new components. But before that, let me import both of them with the help of import statement. First, let me type import search box followed by import drop down. Under this div, first, I'm going to create the component of search box. And to this search box, we need to pass various input parameters. The very first one is label. For the label, I'll try to mention the direct hard-coded value, which is search, followed by under the placeholder, I'm going to again mention direct hard-coded value, which is search products with 3 dots towards the end. Coming to the value, for now, I'm going to mention empty string. After the search box, I'm going to create the drop-down component. And to this drop-down component also, first I need to pass the label. Here also I'm going to mention hard-coded value, which is sort by. After the label, we need to pass the options. Here we can try to mention an array of values, but instead of defining here directly, what I'm going to do is just above my functional component, I'm going to create a constant. The constant name is sort list. To this sort list variable, I'm trying to assign an array with the values popularity, price low to high, price high to low. Let me refer the same sort list as a variable under the drop-down options. After the options, value, for now, I'm going to mention the default value, which is popularity. I can take this default value and I can try to assign here. After making these changes, let me start my web application by opening the terminal and running the command npm run dev. Let me open this inside my browser. This is how it is looking as of now inside my web application. I'm not able to see any of the elements under the sort by. Similarly, if I try to type some content, and in fact, I'm trying to type some content in my keyboard, but nothing is happening because we have not defined any logic on what should happen when someone is trying to type here or when someone is trying to select a value here. As of now, we're not able to see any value. We're going to fix that in few minutes. So what is the problem right now we're facing? Though we have created components, these components does not have any behavior. This is where we can further enhance these components to have some behavior. Inside UI applications, how the behavior can be added with the help of events. We can enhance this code further by writing some functions that needs to be executed whenever someone is trying to type some content here, and at the same time whenever someone is selecting a value here. To define some behavior to my component, I'll go to the searchbox.jsx. Here, after the value, I'm going to invoke some functions that are going to support event handling inside my component. As soon as you type on, you're going to have so many options that you can select. So these are all the custom events that are exposed by the React library. And in fact, very similar event handlers you will also see inside HTML native elements as well. The event that I want to select here is on change. If someone is trying to change the value inside my search box, then I want the function to be executed. Let me select this on change, and to this we can pass a function as an input parameter that needs to be executed whenever some change is happening inside this input element. Let me define a function inside my search box functional component. Inside JavaScript, we can define a function inside another function. So as of now, the search box is a function. Inside this function, I'm trying to create one more function. This is perfectly possible inside JavaScript. The same pattern I'm trying to follow here, and it is always recommended to define a function inside your functional component so that whatever function that you're trying to create here, it will be belongs to the search box component and it can easily access all the properties data that is available inside the parent function, which is search box. For now, let me create a simple function with the name handle search change, and it is not going to accept any input parameter. And inside this, I'm going to have a console log statement. You can type CLG shortcut and press enter, which is going to give you console.log statement. Using this console log statement, I'm going to print a statement handle search change function invoked. Now this function I can try to pass as an input to this onChange event. Since we are writing this code inside the JSX, we need to make sure we are using these curly brace followed by I'm going to mention handle search along with the parenthesis. Ideally, we should not use this parenthesis. I'll tell you why we should not use parenthesis, but before that, I want to show you a demo. If you mention this parenthesis, you are trying to invoke the method directly because you have written all this code inside the curly braces, using which you're going to evaluate whatever JavaScript expression you have written here. There is a serious disadvantage with this approach, which is by following this syntax, you are going to execute this function during the rendering of the component by the React library. I can also show you the demo here. Let me save this and go to the browser. Inside the browser, I'm going to open the console and here I'll try to refresh the page. As you can see here, my function, which is handle search function, is being invoked whenever the rendering of the component is happening inside my application. Ideally, it should invoke only when I make some change here, but right now it is being invoked well before during the rendering of the component. There is an error. You can ignore this for now. This error is due to the sort by dropdown. We'll come to that and we'll try to fix that. But right now, I want you to focus on this syntax. Inside JSX code, we should never pass these empty parentheses. Instead, we should only provide the function name. So with this, what we are telling to the React is, we are giving a reference of our function which needs to be invoked by the React library whenever some change is happening inside this input element. So this is how we need to convey to the React. With these changes behind the scenes, React can easily understand that this fellow is passed me a function reference which I need to be executed whenever a change is happening inside this input element. So let me save this. Now I'll show you the demo again. This time, if I try to type some value, you'll be able to see that my handle search engine function is being executed. You'll be able to see here the number is being incremented. Behind the scenes, I'm trying to type here. So as of now, we are not retaining the value, which we are going to fix in few minutes. But what I want you to understand here is, as I try to type a value here, my React is detecting the change and it is invoking this handle search change function. When you are following this syntax, behind the scenes, React by default, it is going to send an event details as well. The same I can try to accept here with the variable name as event. If you closely observe this code, here we're trying to invoke a simple no arguments function, but here we have defined a function with a single input parameter. If you think technically, this is not possible in a plain JavaScript language, but behind the scenes, React is doing some magic here. When we provide a function name, which is not going to accept any input parameter, behind the scenes, it is going to add event details to your function. And the same you can try to accept here. If you don't mention event input parameter here, the React will simply take care of invoking this function whatever is available. Whereas if you're trying to accept a single input parameter, in this scenario, React understand that you're trying to accept the event details as an input. It is going to invoke this function along with the event details during the invocation. All this magic is going to happen behind the scenes. We can try to understand what do we have under this event by removing this hard-coded value and mentioning this event here. Let me save this. Inside the browser, I have cleaned my console and I'm trying to refresh my page. This time, I'm going to type some content. As I'm trying to type some content, the event details are being displayed on the console. So these are all the event details. You will be able to see the type of this event is change. And it has many other event details as well. I just wanted to show you this feature of React. That's why I'm trying to explain. In future, if you have a requirement to understand the event details, you can try to accept the same under your function. But in this scenario, I want to send the whatever value typed by the end user as an input to this handle search function. To pass some input parameter, I need to introduce the parentheses and I need to pass some input data. For example, if I want to send Madan as an input to this function, this is how I need to invoke. But with this syntax, we already discussed behind the scenes, the React library, it is always going to invoke this function during the rendering itself. That's why at any cost, we should not use these parentheses, regardless whether you want to send some input arguments or not. Then how to send the input to this function that we have defined here? This is where we can follow a clever hack with the help of arrow functions. So here I can try to define an arrow function, and inside this arrow function body, I can try to define the actual function that I want to invoke along with the input parameter. So with this syntax, what we are trying to do, we are only passing a reference of an arrow function to the React, and this arrow function will be executed by the React whenever some change is happening. Let me save this and show you that demo as well. This time, if I try to refresh my page and try to type some content, you'll be able to see the Madan value is being logged onto the console. This is because we are trying to send an input data Madan, which is binded to this event variable. But before we discuss that, React is going to send us an event variable as an input to our functions. So what happened to all those discussion? So that can be your question here. Let me clarify the same. React will only do this magic of sending the event parameter if your function is not accepting any input parameter. In case if your function is accepting some input arguments, under such scenarios, React is not going to provide you with the event input parameter. If you want this event input parameter as an input to your function, you need to do that manually. I'm going to show you how to do that in few minutes. As of now, since our function is accepting an input parameter, whatever we are trying to pass here, it is going to be bounded to this event variable. This name of event is not making sense here. Let me change this to input search and update the same inside my console.log as well. With the changes that we have done so far, we have enhanced our search box component to invoke a function whenever someone is trying to change the value inside this text box. Of course, as of now, we are trying to send always the Madan value, but instead, we should send the actual value that is entered by the end user. Let's try to enhance this further in the next lecture as well.